My name is Raya. Let's catch you up.
Every day,
The world's broken,
I put my war paint on.
and our people are divided.
I'm a warrior.
The world
I put my war paint
is full of good people. Don't give up on them.
From Disney,
It's up to us to restore peace. Note to self, don't die.
Raya and the Last Dragon. Rated PG. In theaters now, or order it on Disney Plus with Premier Access.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a post-film Q&A with the screenwriters of Raya and the Last Dragon. My name is Katsi Villafan, and I'm a poet and writer from Philadelphia. Today's Q&A is brought to you by the Seattle Asian American Film Festival, along with a few other friends, Austin Asian American Film Festival, Happy Fest, Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival, Boston Asian American Film Festival, San Diego Asian Film Festival, Toronto Real International Film Festival, Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, DC Asian Pacific American Film Festival, Hawaii International Film Festival, and Vancouver Asian Film Festival. So I watched the movie as well, and I hope that you enjoyed it just as much as I did. My thoughts are that I really appreciated the beauty of Southeast Asia, seeing the fabrics, the food, the architecture, but it also reminded me of my identity as a refugee who is removed from my family and my home. As a parent, I really enjoyed watching it with my daughter and my nephews, but at the same time, I felt like I really enjoyed the fight scenes, and that it could be something that I could share with my stepdad, who enjoys martial arts films. And here we have with us the screenwriters, Adele Lim and Quy Nguyen. Welcome. So my first question to you guys is, as screenwriters, please explain to us the process of writing the story and how it becomes a film, as well as your role in the creation of Raya. Like, what was it like to see your ideas come to life in this film?
Well, I guess I'll get us started off. But first of all, to your reaction to the film, I'm so glad you shared that. I grew up in Malaysia. I have children too, and I take them home, every year if I can, except for this last year, obviously. And when they're there, they love Malaysia, they love the fruits, the things, the sights, but it's not something that they can really talk about easily with their friends over here, because people here, they haven't really been exposed to a lot of Southeast Asian culture or even their fruits. So even in the opening of the movie, being able to see the mangosteens, langsats, longans, the batik, it all very much, I think, speaks to our culture. If you're an immigrant, if you live in Southeast Asia, that hopefully there's something you see in the movie that reminds you of home. And to your question about writing for Raya, it's very different from any other feature writing assignment, because it's incredibly collaborative. People have this idea of writing, as being a very individual, isolated pursuit, and that could not be further from the truth with a Disney animated feature. Because, Quy and I, we come in every day, it's like office hours, and we're in the story room surrounded by these amazing story artists, the directors, the filmmakers, and we're all really in it together. I mean, of course, we have to do a ton of writing on our own, but in terms of the world creation, the visual development, there's so much to draw on, so that as a writer, you don't really feel alone, trying to come up with the world and the journey and the arcs. And also the collaboration with the story artist is probably my favorite part of the process, where, even when you write a scene, a story artist takes it over, and then they bring so much of their art and their skill and to it. They're cinematographers, they are directors, they are actors also, because they have to do that all in the storyboards. And it was amazing and inspirational to see that there were so many people behind the scenes, people in our story team in visual development, in animation, who either grew up in Southeast Asia or had Southeast Asian cultural roots. And you could see it in the quality of their work, that it wasn't just, being inspired by a seminar or research, that this was really something that they grew up with in their household. So, it was really wonderful to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, going into this process, it was something unlike, doing live action or TV or where I'm from, theater. It is the single most collaborative thing I've ever been part of in my life. I've never, because as I think Adele hit it towards, it's not like in a regular setting where as a screenwriter, you've written the script, you hand it off, and then the directors go off and do what they want with it. You're in there every single day, working on the scenes from for years. Honestly, this movie started 6 years ago. Adele and I came in at different points, and just has been workshopping this thing basically to what you see now. But it's been a wonderful process, and I continue to be thankful for the fact that now my kids have some heroes that look like them.
What was it like working together?
It was wonderful. I mean, it truly, like the amount of work that goes into these movies is staggering. I think we had 450 people in total, and there was, for a long time, for a while, it was just me, and that was very lonely. And so when Kui came on, it was wonderful. There's so much writing that goes on, not because you don't just write the movie once and you're done. We put up 8 different screenings of an animated feature. That means we put it all up. We watch it, see what works, full voice, full, like temp score, all of it to see how it works. And then we tear it all down and we rewrite the whole thing. And we don't even rewrite the whole thing 8 times. I mean, I think we've written it like dozens to hundreds of times, each individual scene. And I think, I think also our skill set was really complementary. I think I came on a little bit earlier, so there was a lot of world building, a lot of work in terms of thematics and structure and, different characters and figuring out what their arcs are. And what Kui, I felt like, brought to it was just so much life and fun and, the action. It was just like this breath of fresh air. But I don't know, Kui.
I mean, for me, it was definitely intimidating because, like, I've said this in other interviews. Like, Adele has been like a hero of mine for quite some time in this industry. So to get a chance to work with her, from Crazy Rich Asians, but also what she's done for just screenwriters, Asian American screenwriters in general for our industry for years and years, has been something I've always appreciated. And so to be able to write this movie with her is a total dream come true. And I feel like I learned how to collaborate and got to make these heroes with her that I think are, I always say that these characters have like 450 plus parents, but a lot of the DNA in this is definitely, I consider Adele's. And so, when I look at Raya, I think a lot of her personality and her fun comes from my co-writer here that I just, even when I was like sitting on penning and I was like, oh, I need a hero that sounds like different than any of the other heroes that we've seen in a Disney movie. And it was really nice to be able to just hear Adele talk and go, I'll just make her sound like her. So that was fun.
Kui's being nice. I feel like if anything, my personality is in like Nomari's rage, generally. But it was a lot of fun. We had, I think with him, me, and like Fawn Thorn, who's our head of story and from Thailand, we get into these really amazing discussions that I personally have never been able to have because I'm usually like the only, person of color on a TV writing staff or, the producers I'm working with, like they don't share my same frame of reference. And it was just amazing to have Kui and Fawn, and be able to really like shape our characters and shape our world.
Yeah, I will say that's the one big joy about coming into this because unlike Adele, I think, I've been in a lot of TV writers' room where I was the one person of color, not just Asian American or Southeast Asian, just person of color, period, in the rooms I've been in. And to come into Disney where there was, my co-writer was, Asian, and so was, our head of story, a lot of people on our story team, our animators. It was interesting, like just going, up the elevator at, Disney Studios when we were still at the building and be able to look around and go, wait just a minute, this feels like a New York subway train. It represents all of us. There was no real majority of anything. And so that felt refreshing in a way that I had never felt in any of the other settings I've been in. So that was something I truly, truly appreciated.
Wow, that's really, I feel like, like the film sort of brings together these conversations that I think that we haven't been able to have. And even amongst, my friends who, they're not very, they're not really like socially active, and to be able to present to them like, hey, there is a Southeast Asian inspired animated film coming out. Like, would you support it? Why or why not? And so I think that Raya has done a lot. So thank you guys so much. I wanted to get to my next question, which is that there's been a lot of critical praise about the cast, specifically Kelly Marie Tran, Awkwafina, but that there's been criticism because the rest or the majority of the cast is led by East Asian actors. So talk about the work that went into the cultural inspirations and then the response to the cast.
Well, there was a lot of work done in terms of cultural inspiration, whether it was the Cultural Brain Trust that was assembled of people that we have relationships with from, throughout the region, and particularly Professor Steve Arunsak, who was instrumental.
My friend.
Oh, he's the best. I mean, just, beyond like the breadth and depth of his knowledge, just really the compassion and the joy, that he really poured into this was, and you brought up the question of casting, and these are great conversations, to have. I'm delighted to see them happening, whether it's on social media or in the media, and they're all conversations that we need to be having, and the industry needs to be having, and for us, I can just say that we view ourselves to be incredibly lucky to have Kelly Marie Tran, who really brought in so much of the life and the warmth and the vulnerability to the character of Raya. And with all our actors, who really identified with their characters and brought so much to it to just really shape, the identity of those characters and bring them to life.
Yeah, I mean, they were instrumental in crafting the movie, because much like almost anyone on this team, like, it wasn't a movie that was done. It wasn't like, again, we didn't just make the movie and then cast it. It was a process that had been built from the ground up, and so it was good to have the actors that that were involved be able to craft not just what they were doing in the movie, but like also just giving each of these characters soul and depth, and and especially in this moment in time where there's definitely injustices in the world, and I'm very appreciative of being able to put out a movie like this that depicts positive role models and a positive story when it comes to people that look like us.
So in speaking to the research that went into the film, were there any conscious decisions to make the characters distinguishedly Southeast Asian?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. From the very, very beginning. It was at the moment where the filmmakers had decided to use Southeast Asia as its central inspiration. So even though the land of Kumandra is a fantasy land, and it was done for various reasons, because it is a fantasy story. It is not based on one specific mythology. But like, Southeast Asians were not a monolith. And when you look at the region of Southeast Asia, it's like 11 countries. But even in the country I grew up in Malaysia, there's so many different races, cultures, languages, religions, so many diverse backgrounds. And just being able to, trying to focus in on one would have been, impossible. And I think we would have done injustice to, a lot of these cultures.
Yeah.
I think even though you see a lot of like specific cultural details in the visuals, when it came to story, I think we're challenged to really go deeper, like sort of what is underneath a lot of these cultures throughout Southeast Asia, and what we really, what we discovered, and what we also know, like in our bones, it's that spirit of community. That in one country where there are so many different races, cultures, that when you look at what is truly transcendent about the arts and even the food, it is because of all these different disparate elements that they maintain their integrity, but they come together to make something transcendent. And also the spirit of community, that the way I was raised and the way a lot of people who are of the culture here who are raised, you don't just think about yourself. The West, the storytelling structure in the West is very, it's like a solo hero who just like takes down the whole world and, emerges victorious at the end of it. And that's really not our jam. Like, when you're growing up, like when to just give an example, like if my grandmother like makes a big vat of her like noodles, like her asam laksa, it's not just for our family. It's like she's calling the neighbors over, she's calling like friends of friends over, because you make a ton. It takes a ton of people to do it, and you want to share it. And there is this quid pro quo, not and not in like a petty sense of like I'll give you something and you give me something. It's this continual act of giving and receiving that I love about our culture. And so it's wonderful to be able to allude to that and build on it over here. And I think what Kui and Don and Carlos brought to the movie too is also highlighting that, even that bit of food, and using it to be able to like art. You could track Raya's art just in her relationship to food.
Yeah, I mean, what was so super fun about it was because there were so many Southeast Asians working on the film, was the fact that we weren't like going, the easy version of this was like, Heart is based on Malaysia and Fang is Thailand, and you could have named each thing based on it, but there's just, it was, we were trying to build, I always equate it to like building the Arthurian legend or Game of Thrones or Dungeons and Dragons. Those are big fantasy movies based on generically European, history. You look at like Dungeons and Dragons and you can always go, well, this comes from French history or Germanic legend or Viking folklore. You can kind of build all that. And when we were building this was a chance for us to build, basically our version of a Dungeons and Dragons. There's literally a dragon in this movie. Fantasy, but we're using kind of like the world of Southeast Asia as our cultural inspirations. But what's super fun about it, because we weren't naming any single country, it also meant that all of us that were of Southeast Asian descent, we were basically, playing tug of war on like, what Easter egg are we gonna put in here? What piece of food? Like I would always be pitching like some Vietnamese dish, and Adele would be doing something Malaysian, and Ron would be Thai, and Lewis would be like, here's an Indonesian dish. And it was just this constant, very fun thing that it was like you watch other movies and there, and a lot of other Disney movies have Easter eggs to other Disney movies. What's so great about this, yes, there are those moments here too, but it was a chance for us, because we also knew how rare it was to be able to see these cultures, our cultures, celebrated in a big Hollywood film, like not just like some indie flick, like big, like big Disney. And it was like a chance, and being very, very aware of that was a thing that was going to happen here. It was really nice to be able to do that, especially like unlike Adele, I grew up in Arkansas, so I didn't get to see. Not only did I not get to see myself on screen, I just didn't see myself even in the world I lived in. And so I knew how big of a deal this was going to be, and was something that I knew was a big gift for my kids to be able to see a hero that looks like themselves. And I always think about like, not just for them to see it, but for their friends who aren't Asian or Southeast Asian, who get to see it and celebrate it and want to be Raya, want to be Namari, Tong, Boone, these characters, because there's something super powerful about that. The moment, I remember working across the street over at Marvel, and my colleagues there, asking them like, how do you know when Black Panther succeeds? It's like, well, we know when white kids want to be Black Panther. and here, I just saw it the other day, our pod family that we were with, the white kids there were arguing on who was going to be, and these were boys, by the way, on who was going to be Namari and Raya while they were playing pretend with my boys who are Asian. And so it was like, this is powerful, because they're looking past gender, past race, for a character that meant that my kids now can say, hey, I can see someone that shares my kind of like racial background and feel like everybody wants to be them. Just like when I was a kid and kids loved Bruce Lee, right? My Black friends loved Bruce Lee. I loved Bruce Lee. White friends loved Bruce Lee. And that's why he's a figure that transcends just his race or just being an Asian American. That was something that there was an opportunity that Adele and I had in making just frankly, a Disney character, a Disney princess that could transcend all those things, that could mean that much to our children. And so, we dove in blindly and did what we could to make it as authentic as it could be for us. But it was definitely a piece to celebrate, where we're from, and to give our kids some heroes that they so deserve.
So I was thinking about as the friendship between the final group of heroes was forming, I was reminded of a line from a documentary called Nero Kuni: The Betrayal, which is based on the life of Tavisuk Prasavat, who's Lao American, and it came out maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and it was nominated for an Oscar, won an Emmy, all that stuff. But for those in the audience who haven't seen it, it's filmed over 27 years of his life, basically from the time that his family arrives to America. And when the quote that I'm thinking of comes from a scene when they arrive at the government assigned apartment, but that there's already I think he said there's like a Cambodian man and then a Vietnamese family already there. And the line is, people who were once enemies of war now have to live together. And then it also made me think of our identities as Asian Americans, because as immigrants, we no longer have this 24-hour access to culture. And so we have to, seek where we're able to find it. And so I'm wondering if for the basis of the friendships for the final group of heroes, did it stem from survival or did it stem from comfort?
Well, I think it started from a place of survival. That if you look at young Raya, she's brought up with this idea that all these other different lands are the enemies. And I think, that's something, you saw in the history of Southeast Asia, but you see in the history of everywhere. You'd see it, when we were coming up with the story years ago, the filmmakers looked around. It's where the movie comes from is deeply personal for all of us. And any child would be able to look around and tell you that we live in, greatly divided times where the inclination seems to be to want to pit one group of people against the other. And so when you look at our story, that's the idea Raya grows up with, that there are all these different lands and all she can think about them is, all the ways in which they're trying to hurt her and how they're not trustworthy and how they're different and alien, and she doesn't want to have to work with them. She wants to just go this journey alone. And what she finds is that when she awakens this dragon, that the world is not going to be fixed by one magical act and waking up this magical dragon. The dragon is not what she expects. But what the dragon does is, and Awkwafina is so funny and amazing playing her, but that humor is really grounded in something, which is Sisu can see the light in Raya, and she can see the light in the Khan baby, in like the big, fearsome warrior, in people, and even in, someone that Raya thinks is her blood sworn enemy. And what the dragon and Sisu are, is really trying to nudge Raya towards is like understanding that, there is still the spark in us, and it's a spark that can see the spark in others. And, to take a step back, I talked about how Kumandra was a fantasy land, but the troubles they face are real world troubles. And the solutions that Raya has to find are real world solutions. And so what Sisu tells her is like this act of trust, of pulling people together. It's not easy. It's not like, it's like once I give you a gift or I tell you that, I trust you, suddenly we're best friends. It doesn't work like that. We're going to be disappointed. We're going to have our heart broken. We're going to be let down again and again, but we still have to get up and we still have to pull together, because that's the only way we are going to get through a problem or this life together. And so when you talk about, is it just survival and comfort? All these things we do, like even the world right now, it comes from a place of survival. It comes from a place of, it's a solution. We're going to get along just for this. But just by the act of coming together, we recognize each other's humanity. Just by the act of breaking bread together, we can't help but understand and sympathize and empathize with each other. And so from that place, like true friendships and, and true understanding comes. So I hope, there's one thing people take away from the movie. I think it's that.
Yeah, I every time I think about the DNA of this movie was an action movie, right? It was supposed to be an action movie or a big superhero flick, much like our Friends Across the Street, where where it's superheroes saving the world, and Raya is no different from that. She's built to save the world, but what I love about it, is that her great superpower isn't punching the bad guy to death. It's an act of empathy. It's an act of realizing that we are all in this together. And it was an act that, I want my kids to be able to understand to do that is scary. And it does take bravery. And you have all the reason in the world not to trust. And when it comes to like the metaphors of what this flick was, like to be honest, like, when I was thinking about it, I wasn't really thinking about honestly the Southeast Asian stories of, Vietnamese and Cambodians getting together. Just thinking about the world America, what we're in right now. We're greatly divided. We have an existential crisis like the Darun that gives us all the reason in the world to hunker down our own homes, our own little pods, and not trust each other. And in this moment, I think that it takes again, we made this movie to be timeless, but we had no idea that by the time it would come out, how timely it would be and how topical it would feel. And it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, well, here we are. And our kids, it gives us a chance to talk to our kids about this moment, right? Like much like our, past Disney films, like Big Hero gave us a chance to talk about grief, and much like Zootopia gave us a chance to talk about bias. Here's a moment of going, hey kids, I know it's scary to go back out there again and make friends again and do all those things again. And it is scary for mommy and daddy too. But especially when the world is what the world is, I can't hide you from, what you're seeing on the television sets. But at some point, this world only gets to be better if we can do this together. We can't fight and destroy each other. And so it gives us as parents an opportunity to have those hard conversations.
I found it interesting that the main, because the main arc of the story is trust and conflict, and that basically the story starts when Raya puts her trust in the wrong person, but that it also ends when she puts it in the right person. So I just, it's something I just found interesting. So I have one more question left for you. And okay, so my only gripe with the film is that Queen Undercut, and I know that's not her name, but I'm just calling her that because I don't like her, is that the choice to include a scene for accountability or redemption, or, you know what I mean? Why is it, I guess, why was amnesty so easy for her?
I'll start it off by, I think Queen has a lot to contribute to this too. When you look at Namaari and Raya, truly they are different sides of the same coin, and they start very much as the same character. They're both, were groomed to be leaders, and have loving relationships with their parents, and everything that they do is driven by this fierce dedication they have to their family, their community. Raya is only different in that, first of all, she had the wisdom of her father. She had the dream of her father as a young child, and she loses it. She gets disconnected from it. And then she meets the dragon, and Sisu gives her, re-imparts this wisdom to her, this, the wisdom of having to reach out and having to get past our own sense of betrayal, and resentment at others. And so, in terms of the amnesty, you're talking about, from the Namaari's point of view, for Namaari and her mother, they feel like what they are doing is right. And what they did, was out of a sense of survival in the beginning, and wasn't, a casual sort of cruelty to others. They felt like they were doing what was needed to ensure the survival of their people. And so towards the end of it, I think this is something that Raya understands when she has a moment, a key moment at the end where she can just strike out and destroy her enemy, even though none of us would begrudge her that, and some people might even be cheering her on. But when she sees that there is a bigger issue at hand, that there are people, people who she thought were her enemy, going around saving, people who can be saved, that is the higher calling, that is what a hero does. And so we're not saying that forgiveness is easy and there shouldn't be accountability. There should. But for us, for Raya, those are the actions of the hero, to see past your own pain and to see what the world really needs and to make it happen.
Since this is the last question, I just wanted to say real quickly that I'm a huge fan of Yellow Rage.
Thank you.
that Listen A-Hole was one of those pieces that kind of was transformative for me when I was, first started out as a writer. But anyways, and when it comes to Namaari, I think that what was so fun about that character was, for us, it was, she was Raya. There was a version of this movie where, Namaari could have met Sisu, and this whole movie would have been in reverse, because they both had the same background. And there was times, to be honest, when we were crafting her, she kind of ended up, we kind of stole the movie sometimes. We had to take out moments in the movie because we gave her too much background on making you understand her point of view. But for us, it was important that the root of the conflict was the same, was the thing that everybody was trying, and you got to see it with Raya, which is everyone's just trying to take care of, you know, quote unquote, their families, their people, and there's one route to do it, and that's in great conflict, fighting over the things that, you know, the scarcity of rations that are out there, and we all understand that, and what, you know, and then that's how we start the movie. But at the end, you know, after meeting Sisu, going through this whole thing, there's not a lot. There's 5 people. Literally, it's the most post-apocalyptic movie Disney has ever done when it comes to a kids movie, you know. And so, you know, there's literally 5 people left in the world, and there's only 5 little things that keeps people alive. And in that moment, if you haven't seen the movie, I'm totally spoiling it here. Is Raya going, "Hey, I'm going to give it to you, because at some point I have to give faith in someone is going to do the right thing to save the world." And it was kind of the move that we were all like, "Are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to take the main character out before the movie's done? Let's give it a try." But it was something that kind of went to the heartbeat of when we all talked about Southeast Asian or Asian Eastern thought versus Western thought. The Western, you know, we looked at, and this was a brave thing on Disney's part, was the fact that Western heroes are about I. It's about me. It's about Captain America saving the world single-handedly. And for us, it was about community, the we of it all. And it's like, can we make a movie where ultimately the hero is we, not I? And that is, I think, the defining thing that we were working towards. And you know, at the end, that was part of the DNA before, you know, Ivory came on. That was like, you know, I don't know if it was even before Adele, but I know that it was part of what this movie was ultimately going to culminate towards. And it was, you know, it was a bit of a magic trick to get there. But I'm glad that Disney allowed us to make a storyline that had an Eastern ending instead of a Western one, where we just beat up a bad guy, you know?
Well, thank you both for explaining that. I guess I feel a little bit better about her, but, you know, a little bit, tiny bit mad at her, but.
So that's all the time that we have. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being in this conversation with us. I suggest that if you see this movie again, this gem of a movie, that you go see it with your friends, that you share it with your family, that you bring it to your community, and that we keep the conversation going. And so thank you guys again for watching Raya and the Last Dragon with us, and hope you have a great day.